I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
This is Anthony Range from XDP.
This is Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
Corey Willis from PPEI.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
Diesel Podcast.
You're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
The Diesel Podcast. The one and only Diesel Podcast.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? Diesel Podcast is back this week with an awesome episode. We're going to be talking about the war on diesel trucks, which is something that's been going on for a while, so we got some interesting things to discuss. But before we get to that, we got to thank BD Diesel. They're sponsoring this episode, making it possible. And if you have a 6.7 Cummins with a 68 RFE, what's going to happen once you add power to it is stock transmission is going to fail. And the BD Protect 68 kit eliminates that, whether you have a stock transmission or a built one. So what it does is it prevents clutch slippage, and it does that two ways. One is it adds line pressure, takes it up to 250 psi, and it does that by reading turbo boost and engine load. So it's dynamic. It can adjust to you as you're driving. Second way it does it is it prevents cross leaks. Now, cross leaks can happen whenever the line pressure is taken above stock. So they've addressed both concerns with one product. What's really cool is the kit only takes 2 to 3 hours to install. Comes with the custom valve body separator plate and gaskets. So once you get it, spend 2 to 3 hours, put it on the truck, you're good to go. Alright, now we're going to get to the topic of the war on diesel trucks. Rustin's joining us today. Really excited. You're live on the podcast, man. It's awesome to have you on. I've seen you in the diesel community for years and know you're a veteran of it. It's great to have you on today.
Hey, thank you very much.
It's been crazy this week with the eclipse and everything else going on. It's like the whole world stopped, and I'm like, I just want to get back to diesel stuff.
I don't blame you. I'm actually over here in Northern California in Redding, and we got to 80%, and we were watching the people drive it up I-5 just to get out to work, and I'm like going, wow, this is nuts. Yeah, so it's time to get back into diesels. I agree with you.
Well, if you could tell our listeners a little bit about your history with diesel trucks, your passion for them, your involvement, in the community and in the industry, that'd be fantastic.
Oh, not a problem. My humble beginnings began, as a child. My dad was a logger out here in Northern California, and watching him skin cats or drive logging trucks, that was a whole part of it. And I used to live out in Mendocino Coast, which was really cool. And then as I got older, I was a gearhead enthusiast, so I was building models and things of that nature. And then when I got old enough to graduate high school, I ended up in the United States Marine Corps, 3521, second echelon organizational auto mechanic, and got to work on Hummers, 5-ton trucks, logistic vehicle systems, also known as the Dragon Wagon. It's all hydraulic vehicle that articulated in the center. The Army calls them HEMTs. And then from there, I was in the industrial industry, worked for companies like Matrix, for putting up and erecting oil tanks and things of that nature.
Okay.
And then I got out of that, was driving truck, and then got back into, from the 90s till about now, I was learning about internet marketing, and got really good at it till the point where Google changed enough for me to really make a good business out of it, because in the beginning it was just crap. Everywhere you went was a porn site coming up on your searches, so I was like, I'll wait till they get this figured out. But, as the sport progressed, out here we had Chris Warner of Jefferson State Diesel. He became a Diesel Power Challenge winner back in 2008. And that's when I really started becoming good friends with him. I remember the early 2000s when the Power Strokes, you could buy a Banks chip and do some cool things with it and be able to sit next to a Ford Mustang and roast the tires, and he'd be like, "In that truck? No way!" Be like all kinds of stuff. And then watching, guys like Brad Mackin at D&J Diesel Performance, and then Ryan Milliken coming out, the woodwork, and then watching the dramatics, unfold behind Dimitri Millard, and it was quite interesting being friends with all these guys and understand what they're doing and how this sport has really progressed. It was quite fun.
It's gone like full throttle, and over the last maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe even a little longer, just how many things have happened, just with the quest for 2,000 horsepower.
Right.
And then now it's 2,500, and then 3,000, and, things that Firepunk's doing, and DNR Customs, and like mentioned Ryan Milliken, and the whole, the UCC stuff. It's just completely gone to this whole other level really fast, and it's an exciting time.
Oh, I agree. You'll have to forgive me. I'm actually out in my walking around my property here, and you heard my rooster. So sorry. That's how live we are, people. We're actually in it. You know, there's no computer in front of us. This is straight from the heart, and you know, you can't get more authentic than this.
Well, that's what's so cool about podcasts is like it's a conversation, and you know, I don't remember another guest we had. We talked about that, and you know, the access to some of these guys or even topics. It's so hard to get at an event. It's hard to get someone's attention when you're an enthusiast just walking down, you know, vendor row or something and talk to somebody and ask them these questions. And that's why I'm so passionate about podcasts, is they're real. I mess up all the time. We have fun, we laugh, and we say whatever we want.
Oh, great. And you know what? And there's a lot of value to podcasts. On my side of the end, I'll try not to get too involved with it, but on podcasts, you might not be able to have all the numbers to show value for a podcast. I mean, you can get views and listens, and then you could probably look at how many people clicked on the links that you posted on there.
Yeah.
But, you know, here's the thing. Any person that has their own marketing team or a company that has a marketing team, the new thing now lately is mentions. So when you have a company send traffic to your podcast, to the link that they're working on, to that one direct deal, Google goes nuts for that for some weird reason. That's the thing I've noticed. So
Yeah.
I'm actually directing a lot of my campaigns to this method because I know it works.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, you know, it's a pretty cool little deal to have. You know, whether it's a private blog network or a blog, if you were doing blogs, I'd do the same thing because that's the latest thing going on. All right, enough of that. I don't want to get too technical. Throw everybody off. This is supposed to be diesel.
and that's what I was just thinking right now is, you know, you're in California, you're a diesel enthusiast, you've been in it for a really long time, and there's so much going on, not just with companies, but with the diesel enthusiast network, as it pertains to emissions, as it pertains to products with EO numbers, as it pertains to the stuff that happens in that state spreading to other states. And think is like a diesel truck enthusiast, and you don't live in California, you think, I don't care. What does that mean? It actually has a lot of meaning. And I wanted to get your take on that, like what's going on in that state, what's going on with CARB, what's going on with SEMA, how all these things taking place affect what you can buy in another state and the whole direction of performance in the diesel industry, diesel community.
Well, that could be we could turn this into a 2-part show just on that right there.
We can do that.
Good. Okay. Well, you know, being in California and a member of the SEMA organization and listening to the California Air Resource Board and all the changes that goes through, a lot of the people that, you know, have their shops and stuff and know and care about what's going on, I'm sure they're pretty much head of the game. So I'll speak into a language that'll make sense to the general owner of the vehicle. So when you say that you doesn't matter in your state, well, it might not for right now. But we all know if we don't keep on top of our legislators and things of that nature, and some people may not have time to go send a letter or make a phone call or try and meet their legislators wherever it is their office is, you know, and especially when you get up to the federal level, it's really hard to get a hold of them. You might not have the time to do that, but you've got to think about those things and start putting your effort into them because those changes will come to your state. Now,
exactly.
I'm going to bring it back and say, you know what, I do care about my environment, and I am a diesel enthusiast, and I love the things that we do with these trucks. And could they be cleaner? Yes. Do they need a DPF? No. I think that's an archaic piece of crap, but we'll get to that here in a minute. Now, the California Air Resource Board and SEMA actually has their garage program, so manufacturers, if they don't have the means to try and get the numbers and the stickers and things they need, SEMA is starting to provide a service to speed up that process for them so we can start getting these parts better. And Diesel Power Challenge changing, you know, to you got UCC, and now, you know, the Diesel Power Challenge being where it's at, where emission systems are kept. We're seeing fruits of that labor. So I think that's an excellent thing that's going on. And then with, you know, companies like BD and, you know, like and the like, they're constantly doing changes and making sure that they're compliant because they know at any given time, even though they're out of the country, they're up north, the feds could come in and shut them down, or they'll ask the Canadian feds to shut them down. Who knows? There's a lot of goofy things that go on, because they're a bit touchy right now. And with the new president being in, not trying to show favoritism on either side of the spectrum, it's still an unknown what's going to happen with that. But as long as California has free reign to do and say what they want, it's going to continue to dictate the rest of the country.
That's the thing. A company like BD, they do so much in the aftermarket for the aftermarket enthusiast and just things out there that it's really cool. And they've got a ton of different products. And I'm a transmission guy, so I always love to talk about transmissions and torque converters and things like that. But BD builds their transmissions for high torque use. So whether you're towing every day or take it to the track, or it's a race truck that you haul someplace and go compete, in a certain class, they totally revamped that transmission. So they revised the oil circuits, and they replaced roller bearings and extra clutches and valve body modifications. And they don't stop there. I mean, from that point, they offer billet shafts. So depending on the power level, how much torque it's making, or it will make, say if you're building ahead a little bit, you just want a solid setup that you can grow with as you modify your truck, they've got it. Now, the other part of it that's totally cool, I'm probably more fascinated by this part of it than anything else, is the torque converter. That's where the magic happens. That's where the efficiency, the fuel economy increases. If you're racing, where you can adjust the stall speed to make sure that you're cutting down on your 60-foot time, or just loading the chargers the way that you need to. And they use a billet front cover. They have extra clutches, extremely efficient stator, and tons of options. So, if you're in the market for a transmission, you got to check out BD. You got to see what they're doing, all the different options they have, and especially how quickly you can get them. A lot of times, these things are in stock, ready to go. But to kind of get back what we were just talking about, Rustin, is I've heard horror stories out there of guys in California getting pulled over, getting tickets. Things with companies or manufacturers, trying to get their products into the state. And the thing is at the point of that happening, we've already missed the boat as enthusiasts and as business owners and as racers, whatever it might be. That's the last point that these things need to be addressed. And that's where the legislative process, contacting our representatives at the state level and at the federal level, really, comes into play. Now, we all want balance. None of us want to breathe dirty air, drink dirty water. I grew up in Denver, in the 80s and 90s. I remember the brown cloud that would just hover over the city. Now, there really isn't that. I know Southern California had it really bad, different big cities on the East Coast. So there are benefits to making sure, that our vehicles are running efficiently. But also it can go too far, and it becomes kind of what it is now,
You're right. There's a point where it'll open it when an entity gets too powerful. Then you start getting the problems with hypocrisy and a lot of things that go in that direction because they get too powerful. They got too much money. Whereas they were able to punch a hole through something that was holding really toxic water and went through and changed the ecology. So, and they're unchecked on that. They're a federal government. Who's going to go after them? And there may be some lawsuits against them. I don't have a computer right in front of me, so I don't know. But if it was a private citizen that opened up that levee and released all that toxic, he's going to prison. He's done. No matter if it was an accident. If it was a company and they were trying to shore it up and fix it, and all of a sudden it opens up and the federal government decides to find them liable, they're done. They're pretty much, unless they have enough money, they can get past it. And, kind of like what BP did when they had oil go everywhere. It's just a really hard thing to do unless you're powerful enough to be able to withstand the storm from it.
I think about this a lot, as it's changed. I didn't grow up around diesel trucks, really. I've said it a couple times on these episodes, Dimitri hooked me. I saw him race here in Colorado probably 9 or 10 years ago at an event, and I got hooked seeing a 4-door short bed Duramax go that fast. And it's changed so much since then. with these, the newer trucks. And I think, there's got to be a solution. There's so much intelligence and so many engineering talents that exist, not just like in Detroit, but with all these aftermarket companies where they're trying and they're succeeding as well in making these trucks run better, cooler, have more performance, but still operate in this framework. And that's what I'm really excited to see what happens, here in the near future is, can we get away from a DPF and still be able to meet these requirements? Can the technology make another leap forward where, kind of like in the gas world, where all the power went down on the cars in the 70s and the 80s, and now you can buy a 700 horsepower car that's completely street legal, at your favorite Dodge dealership,
Oh, and get close to 28 miles per gallon out of it. Yeah, you know what? It's totally possible. And just to give you some background on why the DPF came about, the diesel particulate filter system was designed by a couple of companies, and Clear Air was the one that pushed it. And they were able to build themselves enough clout. They had a lot of backing to do it. And they pretty much wrote the legislation out here in California, which forced the big three and any other diesel vehicle at that time, with the exception of semi-trucks, to adopt the DPF. Well, actually, the semi-trucks were probably first. I remember. I could be wrong. Anyways, once again, no laptop. I'd hate for someone to come on there in the chat and say, hey, this dude's wrong, man. So, yeah, I'd be flogged for it. But anyways, so when the DPF came out, Clear pretty much wrote the legislation, to repeat myself, they created something. And then California went with it and now forced everybody to keep it, and you have to have it on, all this great stuff. Just no different than what we went through with the smog laws and smog laws. And now we're seeing, from 2008 on up, well, the systems had to get better. Granted, it was killing the Ford Power Stroke. It was doing something to other vehicles, and it just wasn't a really good system. And then California Air Resource Board got nailed. Apparently from the Western Trucking Association had a gentleman that was a professor at UCLA, who's no longer a professor at UCLA. He found out that the numbers, and the gentleman that did the numbers didn't even have a real degree. And we posted it all over the United States what the California Air Resource Board was doing. So it was already brought up on false pretenses. Should never have gotten as far as it did, but because they wanted to push this, and in my mind, even though I love diesels and things of that nature, and I understand there's heavy metals and things, quite a few other things, it'll kill you, but not as fast as the gas will, but they went about it all wrong. I think they could have totally really thought about the DPF, and we didn't fight it hard enough. We kind of just, we hem-hawed, yelled at them. The economy was already bad, so they slowed it down, and we were appeased with them saying we'll hold off on this argument until 2010 or 2011. And then when it came in, the laws were really slammed in our faces, and we didn't have time to really protect ourselves. So, and there's a lot of psychology involved with that. I deal in marketing, so I understand there's a lot of psychology in this stuff. These people are not stupid. Now were able to move people around. They didn't fire the guy with a fake degree. They just moved him around because they had contract obligations with these people, and everybody that was involved in the whole deal, contract obligations, unfortunately. And a lot of these federal organizations or state-run organizations, everything is on a contract, and it's cheaper to keep them on than it is to fire them and have to pay them off. It's kind of weird, iffy deal going on with that. The other thing is later down the road, they went and had this university in Berkeley resubstantiate those numbers. We don't know how much money that was put into the whole deal, and we do not know how much of it they just reassessed everything and said it was all good, or did they bring in new numbers? We don't know. I'd like to think that they're very truthful in what they're doing and saying is correct, but it sounds like to me they're using the old narrative from the 1970s when they were really pushing for smog laws and all the vehicles that were on there creating smog in Los Angeles. And me being up here in Northern California, we're constantly outvoted by everybody south of us. It's amazing how, the difference of thought patterns between people that live in the rural versus the people that live in the urban. It's just, there needs to be some balance in what we're doing, and there isn't, especially in this state right now. There's really not much balance. And me personally, I prefer a government that works slow, because at least all the questions they can try and figure out to get answers and get the great compromise. Right now, we no longer have that great compromise.
Yeah, that's where it's so tough to try to sit back and think, how does it get fixed? Is it because the technology in the private industries is able to get so good or efficient? Or is it, which is probably the most likely, I mean, private enterprise moves way faster than any agency does. But there needs to be a dialogue, and I think that's where, organizations, like SEMA, and what companies do, what individuals do, and their support, and what they, if they can have those conversations with their legislators or send letters or whatever they do, that's where we're able to open up that dialogue and be able to say, hey, we want the same thing. However, it's not cool when your motor, doesn't last as long, or, you can't make a living with your truck because it's constantly in fail-safe mode, or, all those sorts of things that surround this.
Well, I think that's where we're getting into a social engineered conversation with a lot of these people, because the media, whether we know it or not, because a lot of us live in a rural area, they understand how to speak to a lot of different people. And so when people are barraged by, hey, this is going to hurt your kids, hey, this is not going to be good, that brings a lot of red flags for everybody to want to say, hey, what are we talking about? Next thing you know, we're voting for something without really looking into it.
Yeah.
So they use a lot of fear and things of those things to bring out the emotions on people in order to get things passed or looked at. And right now, I try to be, very neutral, but right now it seems like the diesel industry, especially on the smaller end vehicles like our pickup trucks, not so much our pickup trucks, we'll start with the Volkswagens and all the other vehicles that are in diesels. You won't see a Mercedes-Benz diesel in the States right now. BMW, I think they stopped in 2016. BMW might have stopped in 2016. I don't think we can find any of those vehicles in diesels. The Volkswagens, they may have stopped right when they went and had their diesel gate, which that was an interesting story right there in itself, how they got, how it was figured out. Kudos to them. They found a loophole. Why they got nailed for exploiting a loophole, it makes sense, but at the same time, the law was right there. They found a way around the law. I don't see that, that was a problem, but, public opinion and how the media really drug it out is what made it to what it is now. So these smaller vehicles, there's an absolute war against diesel-powered vehicles in the area. I mean, granted, we got to meet the Cathey laws of fuel economy, and they're not doing it so good. They're scrambling. The big three are scrambling. All the companies are scrambling to meet these fuel economy numbers. That's the reason why we have aluminum trucks now. There's a lot of changes being happening. It's quite exciting. I actually like the Cathey laws. I like it when they force manufacturers to be innovative. I like things that make them be innovative. I like bigger, faster, safer. I don't think a lot of these vehicles are meant to be, they go through the test, but we got to look at the test. Some of the tests of these vehicles, they're meant for 55 miles an hour. We're now driving in 80 miles an hour. Are these vehicles still safe at 80 miles an hour? Yeah. There's lots of good things that inspire innovation. And the fact that we have to keep an archaic emission system running, that's not sustainable. That's pretty much saying we're trying to kill diesel. So we're going to see numbers drop in sales if we continue to make it an epidemic, and we're going to sponsor more stories about how we can make this a bad thing. And then we're going to go after people that are blatantly breaking the laws. And, more power to them. Unfortunately, they're for companies that are making money off of this stuff. But at the same token, we got to be smarter than that. Like here in California, they really have no way of regulating us too much. If the Highway Patrolman decides he wants to look at your vehicle and see if you have emissions on there, he can. All right? If you live in a county out here in California, which is either coastal or up in the mountains, you really are not subject to the smog laws out here. So if you own a diesel, you can delete all that crap here in California. It's not as strict as everybody says it is, because they're unable to enforce all the areas, especially in those places that are considered not incorporated. So every 2 years, you may or may not get a message to smog your truck. But if you try to sell it, into a small area, then you need to bring it back up to code. If not, then you sell it over in Nevada or Oregon.
Yeah, no, I can believe it. I mean, that's I think the main theme of all this that's been going on for a while is there is a war on diesel, and it's not. It's very. I don't want to say it's subtle, but not all of us are watching the nightly news to know all the details of what happened with Volkswagen or some things that happened with Ram recently and all these different things. It's just like it just starts in different ways. It starts with you can go on most performance websites or all of them, and you'll see a product and it'll say cannot ship to the state of California. And then that company, they have employees. They had a dream and built a business and all that sort of stuff. They're not going to risk whatever fines or whatever happens to send some product over there, and it keeps happening with the products, with what's going on. And I don't know, it's just the balance, I think, is what needs to be found. And once the balance is there, great. I mean, diesel's awesome. It's fantastic. The power, the torque, the efficiency, the longevity of the motor. Like, there's so many benefits to it, but it's kind of painted in that light of, it's unfortunately, in the past, it's that big black cloud. And it's so easy to see, and, that people see it, and they're like, well, I don't want to breathe that in. And then you get these people who don't really know a lot about diesels or what's going on with it, saying, I don't want that. I don't want to see that. And
well, you hit it right there. I don't mean to cut you off, but the simple fact, the reason why majority of people will not buy diesels here in the States. You go to Europe, it's a different mindset. They have diesels all day long, but here, the thing is people don't like the smell, and they don't like the sound of them. So over the years, we've been cleaning them up and making them run a little bit different, so people could be more understanding the best benefits of diesel. I agree with you. There's pound for pound, diesel will beat gas, hydrogen, natural gas, propane, just in the BTUs in itself. The efficiency on the diesel is much better than all those other engines. The problem is with electric. Electric's, unfortunately, you could say electric is more green, but everything that goes into the electric, the batteries, all that stuff, they got to mine that from somewhere. And when that car gets into an accident, the diesel, it doesn't get treated like a hazardous waste situation, in emergency situations. If it's been wrecked or something. The electric cars, they've got a stack of regulations and things they need to do to protect themselves in case one of these batteries rupture. So, and the other thing is range. With the right tuning and the right products, you can extend the range on a diesel. Electric, you can only go as far as they'll allow the batteries, because the batteries got to get used. So you're limited to maybe 400 miles in electric. I think at the most, maybe 500. I could be wrong, but even then, that's another thing that's amazing. I think it's also part of the social engineering. The fact that the range on these vehicles, they allow the companies to get more fuel economy conscious, but they don't extend the range. The range is still the same.
Yeah.
So it makes you kind of wonder about those things, because there is a fuel infrastructure that we have, and maybe they need to keep that infrastructure. And as these vehicles get more fuel economy minded, well, then they have to lower the range on them, and then they raise the price of fuel. Okay, well, there's lots of things. It's quite complex. Like I said, we can go forever on this stuff, trying to get deep thoughted into this stuff.
We'll definitely have to do a part 2 on it, because it's not just something we could do in like one conversation. We'll have to extend it out, because I think people buying these trucks and driving them and getting involved in the business side of it, there are things they want to know or just they want discussed that you might read on a forum if you go on it, but it's not at the forefront, so to speak, of what is actually happening.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I'm a big fan of the forums. I'm actually, you look up my name, just Rust, and on all the major forums. Some of them have been kicked out for other things, but that happens. And then, but unfortunately, the forums have kind of lost their grip because they haven't been able to get caught up with technology, and Facebook has really kicked them in the teeth. So, that's the problem with forums. The other thing is yeah, this is definitely going to need a part 2. I haven't even got to part why Clear is no longer a company yet.
Oh yeah, no, we'll definitely sit down again. I definitely gotta think about some things too. You know, as far as like just trying to find solutions. I guess is you know really what's really key. Like I was laughing when you said, you know, the trucks have gotten quieter. You know, an old 7.3, 12-valve VP44 truck. You knew it was a diesel. Where the new trucks you get in them, you're like, is the thing even running? I can't even hear anything.
You know what? I still have my early 99 F-250 Ford. I still use it and drive it. It's getting harder to find parts because, well, Ford decided to do something that really irritated me, and they say now it's no longer supported, so they're no longer making parts for it. So every time I go to a dealership or somewhere that has Ford parts, they say, "Oh, we only have one left in the whole country." And you're like, "You got to be kidding me!" But on top of that, I also have a 2011 Mercedes-Benz Bluetec here, and that thing is quiet. I mean, when you stand outside, it sounds like a diesel. It's quieter though, and it has the same horsepower, same torque, same tow rating as my truck, and I thought that was phenomenal. That was one of the selling points, the reason why we bought it. You know, it's got a V6 diesel. It's the same engine as the Sprinter van. And I'm like going, yeah, I see potential with this thing. I don't see a whole lot of parts for it, so I can't. There's not a whole lot of go fast. I think, you know, if I wanted to do an exhaust upgrade and a computer upgrade, I think it'll run me $700. You know, and that's not going into all the stuff I'm trying to do to it. But it's cheaper than most of the new vehicles. So. Yeah. You know, I'm quite happy with the way things have progressed. Once again, that archaic DPF system, that's the part that's not happy with. I'm not happy with.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are real enthusiastic about it, but it's really cool to know, you know, people care, companies care. They're trying to figure, you know, this out, and you know, I know definitely appreciate your time and your expertise and stuff. Just talking about this, and we'll definitely mark down a part 2. And jump back into this huge debate about diesel emissions. And I mean, we all want more people to drive diesels is really what we want, you know.
Right.
That's our goal, and you know, but also balance it, and you know, not have the brown clouds and all that sort of stuff, you know.
Right, and you know, once again, for all the listeners out there, forgive me, this sounded kind of negative towards diesels, but this is the actual realities that a lot of us owners are going through in certain different parts of the country, and it goes all the way up. And we need to do more positively to make sure that people around us understands the value and the benefit of these trucks. And the same token, we also need to, you know, make sure that our senators and our congressmen, we keep them in check and balanced. It doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican; they all think for themselves, and we have to remind them. You know, not only are you for the constituents that voted for you, but you're also with us too. So you got to work with us somehow, and we got to stay steadfast on all those things. So, and that brings me up to another point that we could talk about, because I was trying to start an organization within the SEMA and their many organizations. I was trying to start a diesel group in that. So that kind of went to the wayside, and that brings into the egos and stuff like that we deal with in the industry too. So yeah, definitely a part 2 would be needed. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. Like I said, appreciate you taking time today, talking with us, and can't wait to do the next one.
All right.
Don't forget, diesel fans, if you're in the market for a built transmission, you need to check out BD Diesel's complete lineup for Ford, Dodge, and GM trucks. For towing, street, or strip use, they offer complete setups to make your truck perform how you want. If you add a BD torque converter, you're going to get triple the amount of lockup clutch material, less heat, and better fuel economy. Go to dieselperformance.com or call BD at 800-887-5030. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.